Hi, I'm Yinka, and this is The Hurt Locker, a podcast where we open a door into men's mental health. Coming up, I think I'm going to go on a journey with you.
I hope so. But I am the world's greatest masker.
We have to be.
I call it engaged neutrality.
Hardened veneer was developed from such tender ages.
Yeah.
You're listening to The Hurt Locker, the podcast that opens a door on men's mental health. And tonight's guest, a bit of a special one for me. It's Kevin Edward Turner MBE. Kevin, welcome to The Hurt Locker.
Oh, thank you so much for the invitation. It's fantastic to be here.
And you know what? I'm kind of excited for the conversation. We've spoken just a little bit before we started as well, and it's already firing up so many questions so many honest questions for me. And I'm pausing now, and I'm going to say this. I think I'm going to go on a journey with you.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think I'm going. I get that sense. I'm going to go on a journey with you. But for the benefits of people, who is Kevin Edward Turner? And you're going to tell people why I say your full name as well, okay? But that's going to come out, okay?
Yeah, cool. Kevin Edward Turner. Who is Kevin Edward Turner? That's a good question. Working class lad from Manchester, first and foremost. I guess I always say I'm an artist first. That's what I'd like to say. I trained as a professional dancer at the Northern School of Contemporary Dance in Leeds. I trained in like classical ballet, modern dance, contemporary dance, new dance. I'm a bit of a dance geek, really. So there's not really been a style or approach of dance that I've not really kind of touched upon. It's just something that really excites me and engages me and I'm passionate about. So I did my professional training in Leeds. And after that, I went off and was a performer and a dancer for lots of national and international touring dance companies. Quite a high elite level, actually. And that was amazing for me, coming from extremely humble beginnings to be able to travel all over the world. And then when I got to around about 25, Manchester, which is where I'm from, you know, it's got a metro population of 2.5 to 3 million people. And there wasn't a national or international touring dance company. And it was kind of a dream of mine as a kid, alongside a very old friend of mine. So in 2007, we came back. I kind of flew back from Canada, where I was working at the time, and established the company. It's been operating for about 19 years now. We have our 20th anniversary next year. So I know that might seem a bit cryptic. So basically what I do is I don't perform any longer, but I choreograph and direct dance productions that happen within mid-scale theatres. So that's about 1,000 seaters. And we tour that nationally and internationally. Alongside that as well, something that I'm really passionate about is we do a lot of outdoor public dance as well. So across the world, there's a lot of like street art festivals. And what we do is we take our work out onto the street. And why I love that is it's extremely democratic. You get a really broad cross-section of different people from different backgrounds that might not come across that work. I also make work for Dance for Camera. I teach all over the world, whether that's for professional companies or for universities. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that I do, which I'm sure we'll get onto, but that's kind of me in a nutshell.
You're a bloody success. No,
yeah,
don't pause on it and think, how shall I respond to this? You're a bloody success.
Oh, it's very kind of you to say. I'm one of those very fortunate people where I'm actually literally living my dream. You know, when I was a young kid growing up, I loved dance, and it was everything to me. But to some people, you know, they understand music or they understand mathematics or science. For me, it was movement and dance. You know, I've got a younger brother who's about a year and a half younger than me, and I used to like choreograph really intricate like kind of martial arts scenes from being a kid. I wouldn't have known what the word choreography was. Nobody in my family is involved in the art sector whatsoever. But I think it's just something that's just been inside me. And luckily enough, you know, I was invited to a youth dance company when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And that was a free program in Manchester. And I remember the first day that the director of the theatre asked me to be involved in the youth dance company. And the first question I asked was, "That sounds amazing. How much is it?" And she was like, "It's free." And I went and spoke to my mum about it. And I was like, oh, mum, like, there's this dance thing. And she obviously knew I love dancing. The first thing she said was, how much is it? I said, it's free. And she literally like pushed it to it. We pushed it out the door.
Get out. Get out.
Yeah. And so I was really, really lucky in that sense because it was a free program, but it had lots of incredibly talented and experienced artists and dance teachers that used to come in and work with us. So I had a really rich education there. And it was there that I realized that, I didn't have to be white, rich, or train at the Royal Ballet to become a professional dancer. So I was there from like 8 to 16. And then when I was 16, I chipped up to Leeds to Northern and got my professional training.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
I never looked back.
You haven't, indeed. You've come on the Hurt Locker, and we're going to talk about mental health, etc. And it doesn't have to be linear when we do this, but let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Kevin, the young boy, what was life like for you? Is it just the one sibling, or?
No, I've got two older sisters and a younger brother. So there's four of us.
Okay.
I'm the oldest boy, named after my dad. So that's got a whole story behind that anyway. But I grew up like my mum and dad basically were really hardworking, working class people who kind of rode the property wave in the 80s.
Okay.
So my dad was kind of like a hairdresser. Well, he was a hairdresser. He kind of opened up some different kind of salons and stuff like that. And he had a variety of different businesses going on. So in terms of like materially from the age of 0 to 8, things were actually quite good materially. But unfortunately for me, my dad was a really violent alcoholic. So when I got to my age of 0 to 8 was a combination of kind of adverse childhood experiences really, and becoming an expert of, it's called fawning. So what that is for those who don't know, is like being able to read somebody's behavior. So how they put the key in the door, how they put the keys down on the side table, how they walk into a room, and being an expert of having to adjust one's behavior in order to kind of avoid danger and violence, basically, in the most basic ways. So it was very, very fearful, a lot of kind of domestic violence against my mum as well, all kinds of kind of craziness that happened. But then when I was about 8 years old, my mum was just like, look, I need to take the kids out of this situation. She divorced my dad and we separated, and I've not really had much contact with my dad since then, to be honest. I have reached out a few times over the years, but to be honest, he's not really that interested. I actually think he's got some serious mental health problems, actually, in that he just kind of self-medicated with alcohol, which in the 80s and, was probably like what most people did. I'm not using that to excuse his behavior or his actions, but as you get older, you start to see things a little bit more in the round. So things were difficult as a child for me, for sure. And then, as much as I love my mum, and I'll defend my mum to my last dying breath, she's an incredible woman who devoted her life to myself and my siblings, but she worked 3 jobs. So from the age of 8 to 16, my mum was a pot of corned beef ash on the stove, because she was out of the house way before I got up and way back after I'd gone to sleep. I don't actually know how she did it, to be honest. And through therapy later on in life, I'd begun to understand that although it was not my mum's fault because she was doing the best in the circumstances that she had, I was neglected, and I was, I didn't necessarily, I always had clean clothes and stuff like that. But, in terms of like kind of emotional neglect and just not having really that much of an adult in my life, and, growing up we moved from quite an affluent area to quite a tough overspill council estate in Manchester, so from the age of 8 to 16, from around about the age of 11 or 12, I got involved in stuff that I probably shouldn't have got involved in, to be honest.
Such as?
I was never a violent person, but I was a very entrepreneurial person. So
Understood.
I used to make money in a variety of different ways. I don't want to sound like I'm bigging myself up, but I know how to talk, and I know and I understand people from the fawning of my dad, so I can read people quite well. So I understand what motivates people. So I had from quite a young age the ability to understand what people wanted, and then being able to use that to my ability to make money, which put me in some quite morally precarious situations, and something that actually really affected my mental health later on in life. But having worked through therapy, I actually realized I was a child. Like I literally was a
100%.
child.
100%.
So, it was tough.
Just going back to your dad, you've tried on numerous occasions to reach out to him and all that. Has he ever acknowledged the success you've made of yourself in spite of the upbringing?
No, not at all. I mean,
How does
he's
that
not.
leave you feeling?
Well, I'll tell you, I remember listening. I kind of like, as part of what some of the things that help manage myself is I do lots of mindfulness and meditation. Now, there's a whole journey of how I got into that, which we may come on to later. But for me, like, it doesn't really work for me to do like 30-minute sessions. I have got ADHD amongst of lots of other things. So for me, like, I do like micro mindfulnesses for like 5 minutes or so. And there's different teachers or different kind of like guided meditations that I use.
Yes.
And one of them was talking about taking accountability and responsibility for one's own actions. So about 5 years ago, I reached out to my dad and said, look, I've been a man for a very long time. I'm 44 now. So I was like 39 at the time. So I was like, look, I've been a man for an extremely long time now. I want to apologize to you for the dysfunction that I've contributed towards this relationship, because I'm not a child anymore. I've been a man for some time. I have my own family. So I reached out to him and said, look, I just want to apologize, because obviously it takes two to tango in a relationship. I've kind of not really bothered that much, to be honest. So I wanted to apologize to him for that, And the message that I got back through my godfather, who's his cousin, was, don't worry about it. But I'm not really that interested in having a relationship with you. So I kind of just left it, to be honest.
Doesn't that make you angry?
No, I'm way beyond that. Way beyond. I was very angry as a young kid. I remember one time my mum, I was in the kitchen, just I think making some toast or something before I went to high school. I think I was about 11 or 12, just before I started getting involved in all the tomfoolery, or however you want to phrase it. And I heard my mum's voice at the top of the stairs, and we lived in this tiny 2-up, 2-down terraced house or whatever. And I was really surprised, because like she was never in at that time. She was always gone, for hours gone, work doing a cleaning job, first job of 3 of the day or whatever. And I heard my mum, and then next thing I knew, she collapsed and fell down the stairs, right? And she was a heap at the bottom of the stairs, and I had to call the ambulance. And what had happened is my mum had got a cold. The cold evolved into a flu. The flu evolved into a chest infection. The chest infection evolved into pleurisy, and then pleurisy developed into her lung collapsed. And because she was unable to take time away from work, that's when I was really angry. And I think from that point, I was just like, before I didn't really think about it that much, because I was just trying to just get by. But that's when I was angry. And I was really angry with my dad about that, because I felt like, we had no support for him whatsoever. My mum's literally working herself to almost killing herself, and I think that anger probably pushed me towards trying to find ways to be less of a burden to her.
That's an interesting word, that burden. That's an interesting word, and we'll touch on that itself. I'm surmising that you're in a family upbringing that's of multiple heritages.
Yeah. So my dad, his dad's from Jamaica, and his mum is white British, and my mum's white British.
Okay. You ever been to Jamaica?
I haven't actually. I've been to other places in the Caribbean through work, but I've never been to Jamaica. I would love to go. Been to Cuba, been to Trinidad and Tobago, been to Barbados, but for work. But I've never been to Jamaica. And this year, actually, the maddest thing is my dad never even knew who his dad was. And here's a mad story for you. I actually, because I have a half brother, because my dad married again, and I have a brother with a half brother, I should say, Harrison. And my younger brother Rio, who I grew up with, has a relationship with him. I don't really get to see him for things like we meet later. And I did a 23andMe genetic test, right? And my dad's sister, that he didn't even know that he had, got in contact with me and said, I think I'm your auntie. And she was genetically my auntie. So I was then able to find out who my dad's dad was. I got a picture of him. His name's Ian Augustus Coy, who was from Jamaica. I found out that I had 7 aunties and uncles that I never even knew about, and about 40 cousins. And they grew up in a part of Manchester that was literally about 4 miles away from where I lived. And I might have even walked past my granddad on the street and never.
You did. That's a given. How does that feel?
To be honest with you, it's amazing to be able to kind of connect with family that I never even knew existed. And they've all been extremely amazing and really lovely. But I think what was really cool was I was able to give my dad some answers to things that he never even knew. He didn't even know what his dad looked like. He didn't even know his dad's name. So through my brother and my half brother, I passed that information through to him. So now he's now matched up with his brothers and sisters. He's met 5 out of the 7 because 2 live in the States. And so he now knows about his history, as do I.
Isn't that interesting? Even though it's funny, you say you don't have a relationship with them, but you actually do have a relationship with them, because what you've done, you've tied those bonds that have gone back several generations, several decades, as it were, and you've given him clarity in a picture. So that's interesting.
But he's not interested in having a conversation with me.
With you, yeah. For now. The reason why I asked about the heritage.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go on.
No, I'm just saying I'm kind of a bit indifferent about it, to be honest. Now, I'm not angry. I'm not sad. It just is what it is. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
I left home at 16. I've paid for everything since I was 16. So I don't. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. The reason why I asked you about heritage, etc., was because I wanted to know, growing up during the 80s, etc., how much did race play an issue in your life? And you spoke about coming from a working class background, upbringing, etc. And, I know the Northwest, I'm born and raised in Liverpool, so I know how hard it can be. So how was it for you?
Well, it was challenging in a lot of ways, because I grew up in a white British community, full stop. Yeah, with my mum's white British. So that's very much the kind of community that I was brought up in. And I felt quite disconnected from that, to be honest. And I always felt, and then whenever I tried to kind of engage other people, maybe from the Black community, I kind of felt like I couldn't really engage there either, because culturally there was a bit of a gap. We didn't have the same cultural references, so I kind of felt, I've always felt, less so now, because I'm very, very clear in my identity and who I am, but especially as a kid and a teenager growing up, I always felt like I was in the middle, like I didn't really ever belong anywhere, to be honest, which was difficult. But I think, also supports my perspective as an artist as well, because I think artists are always kind of outsiders to a certain extent, and able to kind of reflect back, what they see, what they experience. So yeah, I mean, God, man, there's loads of racism, growing up. Like I told you, like with my up from 0 to 8. Moving from a super working class, underprivileged area to a middle class area, that constant racial slurs, literal kids saying, "We are not playing with you. You're dirty. You're the N-word. You're this."
Wow.
And looking back, quite surprising, because these were middle class people. And then when I moved to the estate, which was predominantly white, working class British, pretty much being the only family of color on the estate. Maybe I think there was like one or two other families, and always everybody knowing who you are, and
Of
kind of
course.
they know who you are, they know your family. But then kind of always finding it challenging to kind of fit in. So when I moved to Leeds when I was 16 years old, and kind of pretty much, well, I have supported myself since I was then. I moved to Chapeltown in Leeds.
Okay. Chapeltown and Hare Hills, yeah.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, it's extremely like West Indian, Jamaican kind of like, area. And just like, being around that, getting my hair braided, sit or go and get in the barbers and just listening to conversations and feeling like I was accepted, like I was just like everybody else. That for me was when I really started to feel like I could kind of like connect to
Yes.
another culture. And I felt, that was great for me actually, because I really felt like I kind of had a sense of belonging in a community that I'd not really felt before.
Okay. All right.
If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. So you moved to Leeds. It's with the intention, it's with the ambition to become a creative, to be a dancer. Yes?
Absolutely. My dream to go to Leeds when I was 16 was to be a professional dancer, was to tour the world with some of the biggest companies. That was my dream.
That notion in your head, it was fixed.
Yeah, from about the age of 8 or 9. As soon as I figured out, as soon as I joined this youth company and I saw my older peers go into professional dance school and I realized there was a pathway for it, I was like, boom, that's exactly what I'm doing,
Okay.
And from the age of 11 to the whole of my high school career, I was just basically waiting to go to this dance school that I could go to when I was 16. That was it. So it was and also the way I describe it is it was my golden ticket. That was my golden ticket. I got into one of the best schools in the world, and this was my opportunity to better myself. This was my opportunity for me to grow. This was the opportunity for me to be able to, broaden my horizons. And that's exactly what it did. And do you know what? Yeah, like I was so unbelievably hungry when I got there. And it was the first time I ever met truly wealthy people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I was going to go to next in terms of being, I'm going to say black lad, working class. You're going to one of the best creatives institutions in the world, and you're meeting people who have generational wealth, who are going to be looking down on you, saying, "What are you doing here?" Who are going to be challenging you every single day of the time that you're there. You're smiling a little bit now because
I'm smiling because they thought they could do that, but they learned
So
out.
tell me.
They learned out
So
very.
tell me.
Well, the thing is, when I arrived, I was a really good mover. I had a lot of raw natural talent, but I didn't have any formal training.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like to give an analogy, it's like someone who can play guitar, but they've never learned how to formally play the guitar, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's, if someone said to me, "Oh, do this scale," I couldn't do it because I didn't know what that meant. But if someone would have played me the scale, I could have played it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people at that school who had a lot of formal ballet training, had a lot of formal technique training. Obviously, a lot of money had been spent, had gone to private dance schools from the age of God knows what. So when I got there, I was like, oh my God, all these people are amazing. Yeah. But the thing is, and this is the hunger, and this is the thing that I love about my background, and the support that I've got from my family and the love that they gave me, is within that first term, within that first 8 weeks, I blew them away because I was prepared to work harder.
I want to know how did you blow them away? Because I grew up, I can't dance for toffee and all that. I love music, but I used to, in Liverpool, we had our body poppers and all that. And I was just, wow, this is stunning. This is amazing. And over the last couple of years, I've been looking at TikTok and all the reels, and you see the dancers from all over the world. And I think the street dancers are the ultimate creatives. For me, they're the ultimate creatives because they don't need money to be sprinkled on them to say, do this, do that. It's there. Yeah. It's natural.
Well, I suppose that's the difference between monetizing your art and doing your art out of sheer passion. and if you're able to combine the both, then you're onto the winner.
Absolutely.
No way.
Absolutely.
I have to be careful with my words in case anybody I had trained with watch this. I love you all. I had some amazing people in my ear, don't get me wrong. But the fact of the matter is, the reason why I use the word blow them away is because in that first term, I was prepared to go in there an hour and a half early and stay an hour and a half later. I made sure that I trained twice as hard as everybody else. I made sure that I went over the dances twice as much, 3, 4, 5 times as much as everybody else. I was there and I was not playing. I was extremely serious, extremely earnest. And I even wrote my own manifesto called The Cultural Soldier. And I was not.
Have you still got it?
Probably somewhere, yeah. It was like a 10-point manifesto. But the thing is, I wasn't playing at it, yeah. And I had no backup. There was no backup. There was no safety net. That didn't exist. Do you know what I mean? It's like a tightrope. Yeah, that was it. I put all my eggs into this basket. I put all my energy into it. I was extremely focused, extremely dedicated, developed extreme discipline. And with those things together, combined with, I'm fortunate enough to have that raw talent, that's how I was able to kind of develop extreme pace because I was prepared to do what other people weren't prepared to do.
You mentioned the first 8 weeks, but were people onto it, were teachers onto it, were your peers onto you in those first 2 months, as it were?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, at the school in the undergraduate program, they used to have performances every term. And in my first term, something happened that had never happened in the whole entire history of the school, which I actually got picked to dance in a graduating year piece. I was in my first year of my first term, and I got bumped up 2 years to be in a performance with peers that were like 2 or 3 years old. Well, not just older, but also more experienced than me. So my trajectory was literally like that, straight up.
Where's your ego in all of this then?
My ego, well, to be honest with you, I get that slapped right out of me. With my brothers and sisters and my mom and my friends and the community that I'm in, there ain't no ego. I get it slapped right back out of me. I get told to wind my neck in, and I've loved it because it's kept me grounded and made me realize what's important and what's of value. So there was no ego involved. I was so dedicated to the mission that was that. And also as well, I had to break from the past that I had previously.
In what sense?
In the sense that, I just, as soon as I left Manchester, I closed that chapter on my life. I had my friends who were my good friends, as in school friends, yeah? And then I had the people that I made money with, okay? Yeah. And I was kind of groomed as well. And I don't mean groomed in the sexual sense. I know
exactly what you mean.
You know what I'm saying?
County lines type style. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't do that though. I got people.
But groomed.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, in that sense. So the thing is for me is because I don't want to sound like I'm blowing my own trumpet, because I'm not an idiot. The person I was working for was kind of preparing me not to be a soldier, if that makes sense.
100%.
So, and to be honest with you, I'm not going to say his name, but
no,
and it was, and some of the stuff was extremely inappropriate and obviously not a good thing to do. But in a weird kind of way, he let me go.
That was the question. That's a great statement.
That makes sense.
It makes perfect sense because
all he had to say to me,
he could have doubled down.
All he would have had to say is, "You ain't going."
Absolutely.
And I would have known what that meant.
Absolutely.
There was a threat implicit in that.
100%. 100%.
And he never said that. So I get, So when I left Manchester, I kind of was like, boom,
bye-bye.
That's done with. And now I'm going to dedicate myself towards this thing that gives me the most joy and I'm most passionate about.
I keep on saying your name, Kevin Edward Turner, in full.
Yeah.
For a reason. Can you tell people why I do say that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I'm named after my dad. My dad's called Kevin Turner. And sometimes people like be like, oh, you're a junior or whatever. But from a very young age, I was quite clear about that I'm not him. So like for a long time, I've always used my full name, Kevin Edward Turner, to make sure that I kind of distinguish myself from him, essentially. I'm not like him. I'm nothing like him. Yeah, that was something that was really important to me from quite a young age, to kind of have my own identity in that sense. And also it kind of links into my mental health to a certain extent, because a very long time, I tried to be the opposite of what I thought he was, rather than being who I was.
Was he abusive to you?
Yeah.
Physically?
Yeah. 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 There was times when, I couldn't go to school.
I put my head down when you just said that, Dan, because for me, for my sisters growing up, school was our sanctuary. School was our sanctuary. School was where we got fed, where we could just be kids, where we could eat. It was the sanctuary. And I remember getting a beating so bad that me and my sisters couldn't go to school.
Yeah, I feel you, brother.
So when my head went down, it was because I was thinking about a little Yinka and how that was, because we never took a day off school. Never, ever.
I was the same. My mum was so much about education, It's a way to better yourself, isn't it?
100%. And it was interesting. Well, not interesting, but it wasn't surprising. But you come out with it when you started talking about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, because I don't know. You've seen that questionnaire, that 10 questions and all of that, and I know that I'm scoring fucking high.
Yeah, me too, brother. The only thing that I don't have is no one in my immediate family was incarcerated.
Okay.
Every other one I had, unfortunately. Yeah. But it's
please don't diminish it by saying, please don't, because this is you. You were a fucking kid. You were a child, and I always think back for me with regards and the clients who I work with and what they've experienced, and I'm thinking, for fuck's sake, you're only a child.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose I wasn't trying to diminish it. I was just saying in the sense that I've been very fortunate and very lucky to have been able to work with a professional to work through that and understand that. And I honor and acknowledge that I'm so fortunate to have been able to have gone through that process.
Kevin, I don't even think we're going to have enough time for all the areas that we're going to. I'm not jesting, I'm serious, because...
Yeah, sorry, man. I'm going on with myself. Huh?
No, it's not that. There's so many different areas, and, this is the Hurt Locker, and I want to talk about mental health. Let me start from, you've gone through uni, you've graduated, okay? You're now on the next level, okay? You're a graduate now, okay? You're an alumni of the institution, this, that, and the other. I'm assuming you're getting offers left, right, and center.
Yeah, I mean, I left university early to when.
Why did that not even surprise me? I was already thinking that one,
I got invited to dance for one of the biggest dance companies in the country called Rambert when I was
know Ballet Rambert, yeah.
So I got invited to go and work with those guys. I'd not even finished yet. So for the last kind of like couple of terms, I was with those guys. So I left early, but I'd already kind of completed all the kind of work that I needed to do to get my degree. So the last few months, I was already kind of working professionally. And I was very, very fortunate because I did have a lot of different job offers. But jumping back into my mental health journey, my first kind of experience of mental health was much younger. I used to hear voices, and that's the kind of schizophrenic aspect of one of my conditions. I used to hear people shouting my name. That's how it started. Like, Kevin. And I'd be like, and I'd run home, and I'd be like, Mum, have you just been shouting at me on the street? She'd be like, no, son. I'd be like, it was so clear, so distinct. You know what I mean? It was so, but I just was like, I was a kid. Do you know what I mean? So it was like, 8 or 9 or something. So I was just like, oh,
At 8 or 9.
yeah. Kevin! And he's like really loud. I'd be like, what? And it wasn't my mum's voice. It wasn't any voice that I knew. It wasn't my internal monologue. It was
Yes.
just like an adult's voice shouting. And then sometimes I'd hear, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I'd be like, what? But then when you're a kid, I was like, oh, maybe someone's shouting at the kid or something, or you don't really think that deep into it. I mean, my first experiences of having suicide ideation was when I was 13, 14. I used to sit on my window and think, maybe I'll just fall forward. And, and then I'd be like, I can't do that because then my mum knows that I've probably fallen forward. And then I'd be like, oh, she'll just think I was messing about and fell out of the window. And that was the first time I started really thinking about ending it. And I was depressed, looking back, massively. But I am the world's greatest masker, literally.
We have to be. We have to be. We have to put on that mask. We have to front. If you're operating where you were operating in the areas and all that, you can't show any weakness whatsoever, and it's all up front.
Yeah. It's kind of engaged. I call it engaged neutrality.
Okay.
Because I'm completely neutral. See, you're not getting anything out of me, but you can tell I'm engaged. So you're not reading anything from me, but you know that I'm here and I'm present and I'm reading you. So I used to call it engaged neutrality. Like,
What's scary for me listening to you is how this hardened veneer was developed from such tender ages.
yeah,
It was like you had to look inside. Don't need this, don't need that. This will expose me. Put that to one side and I'm out. What do you want? Who's talking? You want what?
exactly.
That feels so.
But it's the opposite of growth in a healthy way, isn't it?
But it's so scary and lonely as well. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying because you'd have to do it day after day after day after day. You've got to make your money.
To be honest with you, a lot of the time I was just numb. I didn't really feel much. And sometimes when I saw violence, some of the lads would get excited or laugh. I have to be very clear. I never was a violent person. And I witnessed violence. I was around violence, but that was not me. And also as well, because I was getting groomed, he didn't want me getting collared on something stupid. So
Absolutely.
So I was kind of in the mix, but I'm not a violent nature.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with things like that, it's a calculation. It's business.
100%.
It's not even emotional. There's no emotion attached, So yeah. So when I moved to Leeds when I was 16, that was me. It was very difficult for me at first because I had to try and, I know it sounds like an odd thing to say, almost become like a human being again.
No, yeah, absolutely.
It
makes perfect sense. It's a bit like the guys who were in the army. The condition to be and think a particular way, and then when they come back on city streets, you can't have that hyper alertness, etc. You can't. You've got to try and fit in and normalize. And for some, sadly, veterans, they can't do that.
Yeah, I think it's because they don't get the support that they deserve.
100%.
But then the thing is for me as well is like, so that happened at 14, and all this stuff, and I moved away, and I was like, okay, maybe I can just kind of leave this behind me. I can start like feeling again, if that makes sense. I don't mean demonstrating feeling. I mean actually feeling, if that makes sense. Because I don't want to blow my own trumpet. I can demonstrate pretty much any emotion that you want me to. Doesn't necessarily that I'm feeling it though. It's just another tool, isn't it? It's just another tactic. But anyway, so my mental health journey has been extremely complex. The adverse childhood experiences, the kind of hearing the voices from young, and then, the suicide ideation when I was like 13, 14. And then I moved to Leeds and I was like, wow, this is my opportunity. Everything's great, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I had a good 4 years, you know, sometimes my mood dipped down, but I think because I was really physical all the time. So I was getting my endorphins and,
Yes.
you know, I was doing something where I felt I had purpose and meaning. And it was something that was my dream, literal dream coming true. I was able to kind of ride it a little bit.
Okay.
But I remember one time I was working for a company, and it's one of the worst experiences I've ever had. And there's a big stage in London called Sadler's Wells. It's like the premier premier dance venue in the UK. And I was doing a show there, and I had this, like, it's too long to explain what the piece is, but I basically had this mask on, yeah? And I was doing this dance, and all of a sudden I had my first, like, major panic attack, right? And I didn't know where I was. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what was going on. But you know what the maddest thing is because I trained my body so much, my body danced
automatically
for me.
Yes.
And then the what's the word?
Disassociate.
Thank you. I was completely disassociated from what was going on. It's like I was almost watching myself. That was a really difficult experience for me. But the problem is in my game, and especially at the time, late 90s, early 2000s, there was less visibility and awareness around mental health. If I would have told anybody, reputation in my game is everything. Yeah. So I lived in fear of telling people about my issues because I didn't want a black mark against my name. Now, some people might go, yeah, but nah, listen, I'm a realist at the end of the day. You know, I have to be. And I knew that if anyone would have known, that would have affected my career. What did I do? I didn't know what to do. So I just masked and masked and masked and masked until I couldn't mask anymore.
When was the tipping point?
The first tipping point was I was about 28 and I had,
You've already got your company.
Yeah, I'd had it for like 2-3 years and I was burnt out. You know, everyone knows who starts a business, like the first 1, 2, 3 years of a business, it's like 7 days a week, 12-hour days, push. No, as it should be to get something going. That's how it works. And I was just burnt out. I was absolutely, completely burnt out. So I didn't have the energy to mask anymore. And it all came crushing down on top of me. I went into quite a big depressive episode. And the voices were getting worse and worse and worse. And I managed to pluck up the courage to go to the doctor and ask them for some help. I got some kind of like, asked me to do some questionnaire. And then they were like, yeah, you're depressed. I was like, yeah, I know. I can laugh about it now, but at the time I was like, yeah, I know. And then they sent me on some CBT course. But the only, like I've explained this to like friends, family, like I did not have any space in my head to even begin to take on board what was going on in that course. To be honest with you, for me, for where I was so far gone, it was a complete waste of time, to be honest.
Okay.
So all I did was just, I think I was off work for like 5 weeks or something, which at that point had been the longest I'd ever been off work. And then I just basically just grinded it out. It was just like, Kev, get your SHIT together and just push through. And slowly, I was able to kind of find my rhythm back to the Mr. Professional Masker again. But when it really came to a head was when I was 31 years old and I got sectioned under the Mental Health Act. I had my first major psychotic episode.
So tell me, lead up to that. How did that happen? What was going on in your life?
Lots of things that were going on in my life. I'd just come out of a long-term relationship with my girlfriend at the time. We'd been together for like 5 years. So obviously I have to acknowledge there was a lot of kind of emotional and turmoil and stress linked to that. I'll be really honest and transparent. My business partner and I were having a lot of difficulties at that time as well, which has caused a lot of stress because we'd been friends for so long, you know, and when you run a business together, you know, with a friend and a very close friend, I'm sure you can imagine it can cause all kinds of distortions.
Yes. Uncomfortable discussions that you don't want to be having. Yes.
Exactly, which, you know, business and friendship are two different things, aren't they? And sometimes
100%.
they get mixed together. It can make a lot of complexity. But I think it was a confluence of lots of different things. I didn't have the words, I didn't have the vocabulary, I didn't have the experience, I didn't have the connections. I just didn't, I didn't have the life experience or all those things together, a constellation of all those things. I wasn't able to kind of figure out or make sense of it, you know, because it was difficult. So, you know, I had a massive manic episode, and that tipped over into psychosis when, for those who don't know, that's when you see things, you can hear things, you can be deluded about reality. Reality distorts. And it was extremely scary, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. Luckily for me, I did try to attempt suicide twice in that period of time as well. Because, so eventually I got a diagnosis. I got sectioned on Mental Health Act, and I'll go into that a little bit more detail. But my diagnosis ended up being like schizophrenia, bipolar, PTSD, and then later on in life I found out I've got ADHD as well, which makes a lot of sense. But I found out that way later. So that was my diagnosis, and you know, there's something that happens when you're sometimes having a really on the tipping point of mania and psychosis. It's called rapid cycling. So I was literally switching from anger, laughter, crying, back to rage, back to laughter, back to crying, back to disorientation, back to delusion, back to laughing again, back to crying again. Then I'd have every now and again some lucid moments. And luckily for me, I've got a family that loves me. Yeah. So they all came around me to protect me, even though I must have been an absolute nightmare. And I remember I was at my sister's house, and I was just like, like this, all over the shop, up, down, left, right, boom, 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 boom. And then all of a sudden, I had a moment of lucidity, and my mum saw it in my eyes, and she went, "Son, you got to admit, this ain't right, is it?" And I went, "No, Mum." And she went, "Do you think you need some help?" And I was like, "Yeah." So she just didn't even, just quickly got me in the car, like, boom, got me in the car, and she didn't know what to do. I'm a fully grown man at this point. I'm like 31-year-old, you know what I mean? I was super fit at the time as well, you know, and I was still performing at the time. So she just grabbed that moment, and she didn't know what to do. It was a Saturday. No doctors were open or anything like that. So she took me to hospital because she didn't know what else to do. She didn't know what else to do. And we got to hospital, and obviously they saw me and were like, "You're getting sectioned, mate." You know, straight up sectioned, you know. And I remember an hallucination I had, and seeing my mum crying, and then all of a sudden like this demon just go across her face like that, underneath her skin. And that caused a lot of issues, because then I started to believe all kinds of distorted things that are clearly not real, but at the time seemed extremely real. Yeah. And again, because I'm a professional masker, and I don't want to blow my own trumpet, I'm pretty good at acting, I convinced them to let me go after a few weeks.
You were in for 4 weeks maximum then?
Could have been between 4 and 6 weeks. The whole time for me is a bit distorted. And then, because don't worry, I got sectioned again after it very quickly. So I managed to convince him to let me go, because, I don't know, I managed to convince him. Then I went home and tried to take a load of paracetamols, and then got found and the rest of it. Then I got sectioned again, because Mum was like, "Look, he's not well. He's really, really not well. You have to understand this." And then I was there for like 3 or 4 months or something. And then I wouldn't accept any medication at first, because I thought they were trying to kill me and poison me. You know, it was pretty full on. Yeah.
I'm always Thank you for sharing that.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
really, really important. And
And I also thought at the time that was it. That's it.
yeah, the
Thing I
end.
worked for is gone. That's it. It's over. Everybody's going to find out. You know, the fear that I'd been carrying all my career, they're going to find out can't work with Kevin. He's got issues, you know. So I thought, I was like, that's it. Basically, my dream's over, innit? Everything I'd spent my whole entire life from the age of 16 working toward. And then I got out again. And I got out. And then when I got out, I tried to jump off a bridge. Pretty, you know, I have to laugh about it. And I was totally drunk out of my head, which is unusual for me because I don't really like drinking that much because of my dad and that. So I was really drunk. I think it was JD or whatever. And I remember standing on this motorway bridge and I was literally just about to let go. And all of a sudden I heard this little old lady, and she was like, "What are you doing, son?" And I was slurring my words. And I was like, "Oh, I don't want to live," or something like that. And she was like, "Son," there's something in the way that she said it. I kind of looked at her, and then she just grabbed me and held on to me. So I was on one side of the railing, and she was on this side of the railing. And she was probably in the 60s. Do you know what I mean? If you're out there, that lady.
I was going to ask if you know her.
I don't know. I don't know who she is. I have no idea who she is. But if she's out there, thank you, because she saved my life. And she literally grabbed hold of me, right? And then she was like, "Have you got any kids?" I was like, "No, I've got no one." And she said, "What about your mum?"
Broke you?
Yeah. So yeah. And then I climbed over. And it's mad because I was literally about to let go.
Kindness of strangers, eh? The kindness of strangers. How has it been for you, just recounting a little bit of your life here this evening?
Yeah, I made a pact with myself when I left hospital. I was like, I am not going to hide anymore. I'm not going to live in fear anymore, and I'm going to be transparent. And I wanted to find a way to take my art and use it in a way in this space, which I've been able to do. Like when I left hospital, I had two things that I wanted to do. I wanted to go back into hospital in a secure mental health unit and do some kind of movement dance sessions. Because when I was there, the only respite I had was a painting workshop and a drumming workshop. And I also knew that I wanted to make a piece about not necessarily what happened to me, but what happened and how it impacted my family. Because their stories are the ones that gets missed.
Absolutely.
And I did both, and an international tour of the piece that I made. And that was when I was like, I'm going to be completely transparent. And people were like, whoa.
The question I was going to ask is, how have you bounced back? My question now is, how have you been received?
The opposite to how I thought I would. Yeah, I've had a lot, it's been great. And people have really surprised me. And it just goes to show you that living in fear, you can build towers within your mind that don't even exist. And I've had a lot of really heartfelt words from people and a lot of support from people. And, and now, there's many different strands to my company and to my artistic practice, but I do a lot of work in something called creative health. So how I can use my art form, the thing that I know best, to help others, and so through movement and dance and facilitating conversations and creativity, I do a lot of different programs in a lot of different contexts using my art form to help and support others with their mental health. So, I really see it as something that's really been useful for me personally, but also, in the people that I've worked with. And I was lucky, and that's why I got my MBE. So, I got an MBE and they were like, do you want to have your MBE for services to dance? Or do you want to have it for your services to dance and mental health? And I specifically chose it to have for dance and services to mental health. Because I'm not going to be fearful about it anymore. I'm going to be completely transparent about it. And if anything that I can say can raise awareness or give somebody hope or help them in some way, then that's a worthy cause, no?
100%. 100%. I keep on saying this. We had Tim. He just gets some blinding guests, and you've got to come back on again.
I'd love to.
Genuinely, you've got to come back on again because there's so much to explore here, if you don't mind.
No, invite me back. I'd love to come back.
I think on the aspect of mental health, on the aspect of being sectioned, how was it for you as a black man being with different gangs?
Oh my goodness. I don't recall this because the timeline there is very difficult and it's kind of like a half remembered dream.
Yeah.
I have had flashbacks, and that's been part of the PTSD that I experienced during that time. But I've also, obviously, in the time I spoke a lot to my loved ones, so they've kind of repeated stuff back to me that I said to them that I don't even remember. And I remember telling my brother-in-law, and he told me this back, that one of the nurses was like, "Shut up! You're not an artist. You've never left Manchester. You're just some white boy off the, some roadman off the estate or something like that." So,
wow.
You know, like
wow.
talk about like putting people in boxes and underestimating people. But that's cool. People have underestimated me in my entire life, and you know, it's all good. Because I've got nothing to prove to anyone anymore. I know who I am. I know what I can do, and I know my own value and worth.
Even though I appeared shocked, I asked the question because I knew I'd get an honest answer off you in terms of your own experience. And I know in terms of when black and brown people are sectioned, the more than 3 times is likely to stay within that entire sphere compared to their white counterparts.
Well, I almost got tased off the police for no reason because I wouldn't take my medication. And there was a white guy who didn't take his medication. Again, this is what I've told my family, and they've told me back. I've got no reason to think they would lie. And the white guy didn't take his medication. I didn't take my medication. They called the police on me, and then the police threatened to taser me because I wouldn't take my meds. So, you know, how people of color are treated in the system, not by all mental health professionals.
No,
my consultant psychiatrist was an amazing woman, and she helped me a lot. And the therapist that I had once I left the hospital was incredible. But there were some people who are overworked, underpaid,
but shouldn't even be there.
Undertrained.
Yes.
And I tried to look at it a little bit more.
Let's not beat around the bush about this. And are racist.
Yeah, could be.
It's a reality.
Yeah.
No, could be about it. It's a reality. It's a reality. You know, if you're in your most vulnerable state and people are chatting shit like that to you, that's not okay.
Of course it's not. No, I'll tell you a funny story. Oh, this is a funny story, this is one thing I do remember. So one of the head nurses, for whatever reason, I'm not gonna speculate, didn't like me, right? So she pulled me into like this little pod area in the secure unit. And for those who don't know, when you're in a secure unit, you cannot leave. Yeah. Although I did escape 4 times, but that's a separate thing.
Anyway.
I did actually. That's a whole other thing. So she pulled me in this pod and she was like, "Listen, you want to go to your sister's barbecue tomorrow? You want a day release? You need to give me a piss sample." I said, "Hey, you're not getting no piss out of me." That's what I said to her. She was like, "Right then, you ain't going to your sister's barbecue." So I said, "Oh, right, okay. All right, you want a piss sample, do you?" She's like, "Yeah." So I got my cock out and pissed on a computer. Boom. Wait. 5 huge black African men. I'm like, brothers, don't let the system use you as tools, as pawns to oppress me. Do you know what I mean? They're all trying not to laugh. I'm like, brothers, I was going to the toilet. She asked for a piss sample. I gave her one. What's the problem? And there was like a 3 or 4 hour standoff. They're trying to inject me with whatever they're trying to inject me with, but I won't let them do it. Sorry, it's not very nice. And lady, you know where I'm talking to. If you see this out there, you know what happened, yeah? You were horrible to me.
There's no need. Oh my God.
But I just want to say though, I do want to say that not everybody is like that. You know,
No, and also as well, being
there's some
sexual
lovely
at the
people.
time was the right thing for you as well.
Oh God, yeah, I was absolutely insane. I did not know that. My understanding and perception of reality was so distorted. I really, yeah. I wouldn't eat for a long time as well. My sister used to bring in like packaged food, like you get like chicken. I don't eat chicken salad for some reason, so I'd take the pot and I'd put it under a tap and check all the seals.
To make sure it wasn't perforated and all stuff like that. Yeah.
I know it sounds wild, but I'm just being
No, but
totally honest with you.
that's where you were at. That's
I
where you were
genuinely
at.
thought people were trying to kill me. And that's obviously a awful feeling to experience. Do you know what I mean?
And it must be so difficult for loved ones to come and see you in that state as well.
Yeah, man. And then again, I'm lucky because I have a family that loves me.
Yeah.
I've got 2 sisters and a brother and a mum and aunties and uncles and cousins.
They've all stepped up for you.
And there was a kid in there, right, who had
Those.
been in there, for
Those.
literally years because Stockport Council couldn't afford to put him in sheltered accommodation, right? He came from care, right? And he was just rotting in there. He had no one to advocate for him on the outside. He was completely lost in the system. His hair was down to here. His beard was unkempt. His fingernails were uncut. He just sat on a chair in the corner. It's a disgrace.
It is.
It's-
It is. It is. It is. It is.
And I'm sick and tired of people not taking it. I know things have shifted a lot recently, and I think that's
But not enough. But not enough.
No.
Look, I was talking with Tim about this. I feel sometimes I'm just repeating, but it's not going to the right spaces. 7,147 people have died by suicide according to ONS, January this year, okay? 3/4 of them weren't known to mental health services, all under the radar.
Yeah. And 4 out of 5 of them were men.
Yeah, 76%, but I'm being a pedant there,
Yeah.
74%, sorry, I'm being a pedant there. But the thing is this, we don't take suicide, we don't take mental health seriously in this country.
No. And but I also think as well that, again, it's our community spaces have been hollowed out. So, for example,
Go on.
when I found out about my Jamaican granddad, he used to love playing dominoes. I like playing dominoes as well, right? And he used to go all the time, and a bit like my other granddad, my white British granddad as well. They used to go to the working men's club, right, and talk with the men. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was places where men could gather,
yeah,
and talk. Okay, where are those spaces?
They're gone.
They're gone. Those spaces. I've had to kind of trade my mates from school, like my old schoolmates, my good schoolmates, not my bad schoolmates, my good schoolmates, because we used to meet up, right? It all starts, we meet up and it's like, it used to be like this. How's it going? Yeah, good. How are you? Yeah, good. That's it. That was the check-in.
Level.
That was the level of, like conversation. Yeah. But now actually we check in with each other and we use that word. Let's check in. So how are you? What's going on with you? Like how's the family? How's the wife? How are you? How's work? What's going on with you? And we actually go around in a circle now and talk to each other in that way.
Good.
And I think we need to do that as men with our male friends.
We've got to do that.
And all it takes is one of us in our group to start it, and the ripple effects would be massive.
Yes. Can I ask, when was the last time you had the suicidal thoughts?
The last time I had suicidal thoughts, I think the last time I've experienced a suicidal thought was probably in 2019, so some time ago.
Okay. Would you recognize the signs now if
Oh
you
yeah,
needed support?
yeah. I see. It's like looking across the sea and seeing the storm coming in. I've trained myself to be able to see when the storm is beginning. But I'm also very fortunate in the sense that, you know, I do have a combination of drugs that seem to work well for me.
Good, good. Listen, you've been a brilliant, brilliant guest, honestly, and I don't say it lightly. We're going to have to organise it with Tim for you to come back on here again, you know, because there's so much to explore, so much to unpick. A couple of things. You spoke about how that love and support has been there for you. I want to ask, who's the most important person in your life? And you can only pick one person.
Oof. I'd have to say my wife.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to shoot you down and I'm just going to say the most important person in your life is you, because you're the expert of you. You know what makes yourself happy. You know what makes yourself sad. And only by attending to your needs first and foremost can you be fully there for the people whom you love and care for. And imagine this. Imagine if you took care of business for you. Imagine how much more richer and textured and layered that love and care would be for those important people in your life. And to be honest, even though you said your wife, I think subconsciously you've recognized and realized that it's you throughout. You've demonstrated that.
I think for me is something that helps me a lot, and I totally agree with what you're saying, is that I have to be aware of my needs in order to be able to serve the people that I love. And I think, I know it sounds like, I mean, it might sound like an obvious thing to say, I don't know, but for me, service is something that really helps me a lot. Not thinking about me, but thinking of others and how I can support and help other people brings me so much joy.
Of course. But even I know myself as a therapist, I know that for me, and if any of my children, family members were struggling, I'd want them to receive the best version of that person who they sought support for. So that individual would need to be at the top of their game.
I hear you. I appreciate you saying that.
Final question. You're going to go and do what you need to do. You're going to come home, etc., etc. You're sitting down. There's a knock at the door. You go to the door, you open it, and it's 12-year-old Kevin Edward Turner standing there looking up at you. What do you say to him?
What I would say to him is, you don't need to be scared. You don't need to be scared, and it's all going to work out just fine. Actually, better than fine. It's going to be wonderful.
Kevin Edward Turner MBE, you've been a brilliant, brilliant guest on the Hurt Locker. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated.
Props. And that's a wrap, Tim. The Hurt Locker is a safe space for our guests to openly share their mental health experiences. If you have been affected by any of the content in this recording, then please reach out for support. If it is an emergency, dial 999. If you would like to talk to somebody today, then please call the Samaritans on 116 123. Stay safe. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Hurt Locker. Please give us a rating or share with another listener. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Hurt Locker Pod.